Welcome everyone in person and on Zoom to the Krach Leadership Lecture Series student panel. Tonight we are joining you from Krach 230 with three wonderful student leaders. They're going to talk about their leadership experiences, talk about transitions within their student organizations, and at any time, if anyone from the audience or the Zoom has any questions, feel free to ask them or put them in and we'll keep it going. For the purpose of this presentation, it is being recorded to be uploaded later, so just so everyone knows. And to start, we'll have our panelists introduce themselves. We'll go ahead and start with Sean on the left and move to the right. Sean, go ahead.
Hey everyone, my name is Sean Wiseman. I am a junior from Fishers, Indiana, studying Engineering Technology Teacher Education, or ETTE. It's really small, we're in Polytech. But some of my student involvements, I'm currently treasurer of the Purdue student government, and kind of part of that role is I chair the SOTA and SSTAB boards, which give out grants to the student organizations here at Purdue. I'm also vice president of the Technology and Engineering Educators Collegiate Association, or TECA, which is just my major, our professional organization.
Sweet, what's up everybody? I'm Marcus Lannie. I'm a senior in mechanical engineering, graduating this semester. Woohoo, boiler up. So currently I'm chairman of the board of the American Society of Mechanical Engineers. Previously, I was president when we grew from 10 to 300 members. Currently we're at 450 members, no big deal. They're on fire. Before that, I was vice president and a project manager of many different ASME teams. I was involved in the engineering projects and community service learning community, where I was a project manager and design lead. I'm involved in Purdue Solutions Consulting, where I'm a technical consultant and board member. And then I'm also now able to advise other clubs on campus, like Purdue Society of Women Engineers and the Purdue Marketing Association on their leadership strategy. Currently, I'm also working at A-Laser as a product manager. A-Laser is a precision laser cutting manufacturer. That's funny. I didn't think so. I'm super excited to be here today. We've taken a lot of different leadership strategies and how we're able to grow ASME, and definitely excited to share them. And like I said, right when this started, I graduated in 3 years, and I'll be headed off to UC Berkeley for my master's in mechanical engineering with a concentration in product design next year.
Well, it's hard to follow that, but I'm Manu Correa. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I am a junior, is studying double majoring in biology and psychology. Still unsure where I want to head off, but probably gonna get a PhD in clinical psychology or neuropsychology. We'll see where life takes me. I am currently the student orientation committee chair for orientation programs. So for those of you who don't know, that's Boiler Gold Rush. I'm not sure if all of you did it, but that's what we do. I'm the person that drives around in golf carts. Should have been wearing my polo. Slacked off there. I know. Some reason I got the job. No, I'm kidding. But I am originally from São Paulo, Brazil. I live in Florida now, but I have been involved in the Brazilian Association here at Purdue. I was the president of the last year. So that was a big thing for me because I was very young coming in, becoming the president of the association. And then I've been involved ever since I got at Purdue with Boiler Gold Rush. So I was a team leader international, team supervisor international, and now I'm an orientation committee chair. And other than that, I'm involved in Brain Exercise Initiative, which is a volunteering club. I'm part of their social media committee. I've been involved in the Purdue Science Council. If I was gonna list, I'd be here forever. I just love getting myself involved in things. So we'll move on and we'll probably circle back to that later.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all for being here. Can't wait to hear more about your experiences. Since you just talked about your experiences and it's fresh in your mind, the first question I want to ask is, what has been the most rewarding experience that you've had while being involved here at Purdue?
Sure. I mean, I have immediately, it's Boiler Gold Rush. I completely changed my experience here at Purdue. Came in my first year, very far away from home, and I didn't really felt like I belonged. I felt like this wasn't the place for me. I think a lot of Purdue students feel that way, even though we don't talk about it as much. But so that was definitely something that changed my life, because I wouldn't have been here if it wasn't for this experience. And the fact that I was sporting to others how much Purdue is amazing, somehow the psychology of it brought it back to me. I'm like, it is amazing. Like, I'm not just saying it, like, our traditions are fantastic. Like, our students, our community is amazing. I'm not just talking about Purdue grit here. I'm talking about the belonging. Our efforts into doing so is fantastic. And somehow that whole experience made me believe that and completely changed that. And ever since then, I was like, I need to do that for others. So I'll say that, like, if it hadn't been for that, I wouldn't have been here and I wouldn't be the leader I am today. Especially now, it's a huge program. I am in charge of about, like, we have like 600 team leaders, like about 130 supervisors. There's 9 of us that work and I'm in charge of all of that. So it's max scale. Never thought I would be here. And if you had told me then, I would have been like, nah, you're joking. Like, there's no way. So if, like I said, I wouldn't be who I am today, or the leader or student I am today if it hadn't been for that. So
That's right. Yeah, I definitely have 2 big ones. Freshman and then first semester of my sophomore year was engineering projects and community service, EPICS learning community, where I was able to be both a design lead and a project manager. Involved in that, we were designing products for individuals with disabilities employed at the Wabash Center out in Lafayette. And our whole goal was to help make products more accessible to individuals with different disabilities. So like one of our biggest projects was, how do you help an individual that's completely blind fold a piece of paper that is not exactly in half up to a certain specification? And what's really interesting is that they earn their wage based upon how many of these sheets of paper they could fold. So the more they fold, the more money they take home. And who's helping them fold more pieces of paper to make more money? Our team. So that was really cool because that was like the first industry experience I had. The first just like, you're given a broad problem and you have to figure out the solution. Versus in class, it's so often, you have everything you need to know to get to the problem and it's very linear path. And then similar when I came into ASME, the American Society of Mechanical Engineers, it was my freshman year. And we were doing well. COVID hit and it wiped us out down to 10 members. And I was on the sports equipment design team. We were designing lacrosse sticks for underprivileged youth in the West Lafayette area. And then we just started growing. We were recruiting. We'll share some of those strategies here in a bit. We started adding on teams. Like we have a prosthetics team designing a prosthetic hand for one of our members' cousins in Italy who lost his hand in a meat grinder incident. And then we're also able to add in a lot of those high impact projects with projects that help our members land jobs and internships that they love. So being president, it was like running the startup. It was the most fun I've had. Definitely the most work that I put in. Probably any more work than all my classes. But it was a lot of fun. Definitely a good time. And that's what gave me the direction for industry, to learn that I'm first of all into product development, but also the leadership and speaking and kind of the other side of management that you don't particularly learn in engineering. And now I'm able to be chairman of the board, and it's more like a strategic advisor for them. We're able to have a lot of very fun events. So for anybody watching, go join ASME.
So there's a lot. Wow. Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, what's the most rewarding experience of your students' involvement?
For me, it's getting to see all of the student organizations and how they benefit from the work that I'm a part of. So for those of you who don't know, so again, SFAB is run through this SAO office, and we give out grants to student organizations who want to put on events for the campus. And I kind of just saw a flyer one day that was funded by SOGA and looked up what that was and kind of got involved just to learn more about the student organizations, because it can be overwhelming. We got like over 900 of them. But as I started to look through just all the stuff that the student orgs want to do and what is required to make it possible, I really enjoyed being a part of that. Being able, like, it's not my money that I'm giving out, but being a part of the process that enables these other students to put forth their passion through their organizations and be part of something that I'm passionate about. I think it's been just really rewarding for me to see everyone doing something they love and helping.
Awesome. So one of you is getting ready to graduate, a couple of you are getting ready for your next year. You've been in various organizations, various positions. What's a piece of advice you're going to give to your student organization as new members start to join and take new positions?
Can we go back this way? I think communicate, and it sounds so simple, it's so obvious, but I think there's so many things that break down in communication. I think tell your people to check their email. That's the easiest way. That's a lot of people miss it. But I think something, at least that I've done, is I will say, all right, here's a list of things we need to do, but assign the roles or the tasks to people. So to be able to communicate what needs to be done, who needs to do it so that we as a group can be successful. Again, it sounds simple, but I think a lot of people maybe don't do it as well as they want to or should, and it just takes some practice to know what you're doing.
Yeah. My biggest thing is, so I call it my diverge converge framework. And it says beginning of every year, you want to diverge as much as possible. And that means you join a whole bunch of new clubs, you go meet new friends, and you go explore your different interests. So like my diverging freshman year is I went to 50 different club call-outs. And for anybody that doesn't know what a club call-out is, it's like the first meeting of a club. And it was just a way for me to figure out, what do I actually like? What clubs are doing cool things? And what am I going to enjoy that I didn't expect that I would enjoy? And from those 50 clubs, I limited it down to 10. I went to another meeting, didn't like most of them. And then I was able to just join 3 clubs that I knew I was absolutely going to love. And something that I didn't do that I wish I did is I wish I went bigger into my clubs freshman year. I was looking for minimal time commitments. I was looking for the 1 hour a week clubs where you just kind of showed up, you could sit in the back, you get pizza, you go home. I really wish I would have like taken control of that, gone to meet people, and really saw how I could grow with the club. Then kind of coming on sophomore year is when I got my more divergent was into leadership. I was in epics and I was thinking, how can I continue to grow this impact? And that's when I was really set on like, I'm very like mission driven and I want to create that positive impact as opposed to just kind of getting engineering experience. And so that's when I figured out if I went big into ASME, we could see some really large returns. And that's when we grew ASME. So I would say, you want to diverge, go explore, really try a bunch of things. It's okay to quit, to leave things early if things don't work out. But then when you figure out that you like them, put your time and energy into them, because if you're going to like them, you're going to get a whole lot of benefit from them. And then this junior, senior year, that's when I figured out that this leadership was super fun, but I liked the public speaking. I liked making videos a whole lot more. And I started kind of pursuing that on the side while I got more into product and engineering design.
No, absolutely. I agree with everything. Just clarification, is the question about like the perspective of student organizations or new students joining?
However you'd like to take it.
Oh,
We can
okay.
talk about new students joining or about transitioning to other positions.
Yeah, I think a big thing for me is, yeah, it's beneficial that you're joining a bunch of clubs and you're experimenting. That's something you definitely should do. Coming into college, that you have an open book ahead of you. You can become whoever you want to be. Like this is your chapter. So you definitely can, but at the same time, one thing that's always in the back of my mind is finding your why. Why are you doing this? Why are you putting your effort into this? Why are you committing? Why, how can that help you, you know? And that's something that from the perspective of both the new student and the organization. Sometimes in the day-to-day life, you're putting so much effort into, oh, like I have this meeting here, I have this meeting here, and it doesn't become something that gives you meaning. Like you lose that intrinsic motivation because you're just so busy fulfilling that duty. And that's something I keep reminding myself. For example, in a student organizational purpose, we just hired our TLs. So they are fresh coming in. Most of them are freshmen. Most of them have been at Purdue for 6 months, a little over. Why should you be here? Why should you put your effort into this volunteer position? Why do we want you to be here and how we value you? So that's like kind of something I always try to remember myself, because the culture of that place will ultimately make you stay. You might believe in the purpose in the beginning, like that's what's going to keep you there. And from a new student perspective, it's the same thing, where understand why you're doing something. Where you want to join and put yourself in. Why do you want to put yourself in? Because you know ultimately it's going to add to your future, or if it's just going to add to the hobby that you do, or if your answer is it's just not going to add anything to my life, I just want to do it for fun, that's okay too, as long as you know why you're doing this.
That's fire.
Awesome. Alina, want to check if you have any questions coming in from the Zoom. All right, anybody in the audience want to ask anything? If not, we got another question. Go ahead.
What would you give advice for someone who wants to be a leader, but they're not in a leadership position?
Try out for it. I guess a lot of clubs have the elections, and just put your name in. Even if you don't win the election or whatever, that I think sends a message to the group that you want to be more involved. And if you don't win the election, you can be involved with who wins the election, or however your club does it. You don't need to be in the club for a long time to go for that leadership
think something else, like, at least for ASME, we're fast growing, so we're always adding positions. When we know that people got potential and when they're just dying to go do something, we go and make positions for them. And that's something when you go to people on the executive team and you say, hey, these are my skills, these are my interests, can you add the position? ASME actually just dropped the podcast today with Mitch Daniels. And how that came about was we had some people like last semester come up and they said, hey, I'm really interested in just getting involved. Do you know what might be interesting? And your student leaders usually have an idea of where they want to take the club. And at my point, I was thinking podcasts are cool. Maybe we'll see what happens if we run one. And then they were able to take that podcast, get Mitch Daniels on it, get the CEO of ASME on it, all within 8 months, which is kind of ridiculous. And it's like when you give somebody an opportunity, they can really take it and run with it. So if anybody out there, if you're not in like a leadership position, you can either go look to make one, or you can always go get experience, not in like the club, like your big club, and then kind of translate that experience from another club so you have the background skills.
Yeah. So kind of going a little, it may seem congenital, but it's not. Let me get this straight. I think there's a big misconception when it comes to leadership that you need a leadership position in order to be a leader. That's complete BS, in my opinion. I think you're a leader daily. I think every action that you do, even if it's a group project and you take the lead on that, that's being a leader. So building all those skills will already, like, you don't necessarily need work experience. Of course, it's helpful, but that is not like, as a freshman, like you don't have a lot of that. And you build those by being that everyday leader. It doesn't matter where it is, because we constantly have those moments. And then when it comes to an opportunity, you have that confidence in yourself that I've had practice in this. Even if it's not in a leadership position, I can have those soft skills, even though there's not on my resume, So when you join a club and you show them, even if you're not the head of something, like I am so down to put effort into this, they're going to notice your effort and they're going to want to invite you to things. Like the amount of times where, I'm crazy. I sign up for many things. I put too much effort in certain things, but that is valued in the end because you'll stand out from a crowd and they're going to be like, cool, that's awesome. Like, do you want to like participate in this or stuff like that? So it doesn't sometimes have to be like being elected into something. You can kind of swing your way in there by just showing day-to-day leadership.
I think something tactical on that too is like, I always say like, come early, stay late. And like, if you put in, 15 minutes before, 15 minutes after, and it's usually like, that's when you build a relationship, like before and after the meeting. That's a great way to meet the people that are in the positions you want to be in, and then kind of figure out your path to getting there.
I want to correct something Marcus said to you about having, like, he bring in Mitch Daniels and the president. When you're a part of something, it's okay to ask people for stuff. Is that something like you bring to the table, willing to go out there? It doesn't cost you to ask people for stuff if it's favors or stuff, because it may not cost them anything either. So being able to be willing enough and outgoing to do that, that's something you can bring to the table and present to the other people in your group as a way.
That's awesome. So we've talked about a lot of really fun things, exciting things. We see the passion and energy coming, but it's not all fun and games being a student leader and part of an organization, right? Some things can be challenging. So what's one of the most difficult things you've had to navigate while being a student leader in your organization?
I can start. I have that right on my mind right there.
Ready to go.
No, ready to go. I think it's very important, like you said, to never think that it's all gay, like all perfect and rainbows and everything, because it's not. No leadership position ever is, or just any participation in the club or an organization. But to me, I think comes down to questioning, what am I working towards? Like, is this value? Like, because a lot of times you feel like you put a lot of work in, and in the end, it wasn't the result you wanted. Or what you put in, you felt like, oh, I didn't get the appreciation that I wanted, which is very common. Like a lot of times in a student organization, especially if you're not in a leadership position, you feel like as just a common member, you're like putting in so much work, but in the end is the person that was directing everything that got that attention. So that's something that I've struggled a lot with, where I'm very much more in the back office of everything now. So a lot of my work trickles down to whoever is actually training other people. So a lot of times I struggle with that idea of, are those 30 hours that I'm putting into this, are they benefiting me, or should they be put other places? Or for example, we struggle with, there's a lot of things we want to do, but we don't have the money for, and you can only go so far, you know, for as much as like there are budgets for smaller organizations. Sometimes we don't have the attention that we want. Like in the Brazilian Student Association, for example, we're not that big. We have like 50 members, and that's the biggest we've ever been. And that's a huge accomplishment. Like that's crazy to me, because when I was president, we had 20. But still then, like we're not big enough sometimes to put in big events that we want to put in, because we don't have the work for it. We don't have the money, and it's sometimes frustrating because you have all these amazing ideas, but they don't leave the paper. So those are all frustrating things. I feel like that anywhere that you're in, even if you're just a member, if you're a leader, like you always sometimes have those ideas that never end up leaving the paper.
We felt that.
Yeah.
My biggest thing is, so when ASME was in hypergrowth, this is the semester we went from 75 to 300. We went from 10 to 75, 75 to 300. Semester we went from 75 to 300, we didn't have the leadership infrastructure in place to be that big of a club. So something I wish I had done earlier was put this infrastructure in before I needed it. So like, what do I mean by that? And it said, so we were running 4 different design teams, but we didn't have a lead in front of all these design teams just yet. We didn't have a process in place to know who would become the lead of that team. So as president, the lead was me. And so you have to handle all the strategic side of the club, but then I was also leading the 4 different design teams each week. So that's 4 meetings plus a 5th for the executive team, which really ramps up. And it's one of those things that looking back, it was really rewarding. I learned a lot, but it was really difficult because you want to make sure that you put the right people in place. Because when you put the wrong people in place, you're going to wish that you just put in the work on your own. But it's something that's manageable. And it's like what you were talking about, how a lot of time you put in effort, you don't know if it's going to work out. But how you resolve that is you have to place a lot of different bets in a lot of different areas. And some of them will work out. But if you only ever place one bet, take one risk, it's not going to be worth it, because if that one risk doesn't pan out, you just wasted all that energy. So what we did was place a lot of different small bets. We put a few different people in leadership positions. We try new avenues to see who could really rise and show their leadership skills, and then we could go big on them. So my most difficult experience would have definitely been leading all the teams while spearheading club's growth. But then by putting in the leadership infrastructure, we were able to maintain that growth and even accelerate it this semester.
So like what you said, like if something's not working out, you may take over it yourself, and sometimes you just don't have time for that, and then you're exhausted. I think it is about the people that you're working with, and you know there may be disagreements along the way, or you may not have the same level of workmanship, but I think that's something you have to work through, especially if you're going to continue leading together. It's about sitting down with the people you're with and understanding, are we working towards the same thing, and are we getting in each other's way? And maybe you can work in each other's way, but I feel like a lot of times that's probably not the best way to work. So figuring out how to work with your people to get it done, even if you have different methods, especially if you're in a group, you should hopefully have the same goal that you can achieve together.
I like that too, because like when we were growing, we were like the startup phase. We weren't as big yet. So what we implemented was a people first approach. So we did a who, then what. So you go find an awesome person and you give them whatever role that's going to align with their skills and help them grow. It gets more difficult when you're larger, but by still having those great people, you're able to really cater and keep the club dynamic instead of saying, well, we have this leadership position, who can we fit into it? Because that almost silos them. That's another problem I had when we were trying to get work done. We had everybody whose skills just didn't align perfectly with our old positions. So revamping that leadership structure could really go a long way too.
No, I just comment really quickly on that. I think is something very awesome. It's so hard to find people and just shove them into that category and be like, here's a job for you, like find a way to fit in there. Like that doesn't work.
Yeah.
Like you may give someone a job, but their own personal skills are the things that will actually eventually shape that position to what it is. And that's something on my mind where I am never looking for a member based on like certain skills. I'm looking at how they can make this position special or how they can revamp that, you know? And that's something that struggles with sometimes because you have to really have that strategic and thinking of maybe that person isn't exactly what we need at the moment, but how can that person eventually become someone even better than what we expected? And that's sometimes when you're more up there in the bigger organization, you have to have that thinking that's stressful sometimes because you really have to put that work in that we don't have a lot of times because we're still students first. So it's a lot of things that take our time, but in the end, I it's worth it. Don't ask me in certain weeks, but most of the weeks it's worth
I
it.
think another challenge we're talking is like, you know, you've grown your organization, but then there's the retention of people. And I think the people leave groups for any sort of reasons, but I don't think you should let that take a toll on you as the leader. And, you know, maybe you didn't get along with that person, but you gotta think there's other time commitments and stuff. And maybe probably a lot of times it just wasn't for them. And that's something you can look at as a leader and say, how can we make this better? Maybe we won't get that person back, but maybe keep the next person.
Yeah, I think sometimes when we are so passionate about what we're doing, because I'm sure you two are, we get that tunnel vision of course everyone is passionate about this. And when someone's not, you're like, what? You don't want to spend your whole Saturday night doing this? Like, are you crazy? And so sometimes it's hard because that retention really is like sometimes not for them and that's fine. But when you're really passionate about something, you think everyone else is. So yeah, it's a tough thing to handle sometimes, but
Awesome, thank you. Well, I know we have a question in the chat, so I'll pass it over to Eileen to ask that one.
Okay. I am one of the leaders in Purdue Solar Racing. We have many smart engineers, but we have only a few people interested in the business/marketing part of the club. How can we recruit more people, either engineers or non-engineers, to help grow into the business side of the club?
I run an engineering club. I can spearhead this one. So it's similar to what ASME did. So I like to say that 3 of our 4 letters in the acronym are alive because we're not American. We are a society. We're not just mechanical. We're not just engineers. But we had to change that vision of the club because it used to be only mechanical engineers allowed. So how do we do that? It was by, first of all, we did the OG flyer. You know, you put flyers in the main places where people of your target audience are. And then it's also make the benefits of the position known. So that's something that we struggle with, especially more on the marketing side, is you're a mechanical engineer. Why the hell do you want to go do marketing? And then we show them, so for example, personally, I've worked more jobs in marketing than I have in engineering. And it's that I found much more benefit from learning those skills that can complement my skills as a Purdue engineer. And by showing them the benefits, that's the first part. And then also just networking. I've slid in so many people's LinkedIn DMs, it's unreal. And it's worked out. It's really weird, but it works out because when people say like, oh, you specifically like reach out to me, you want me on the team, my skills align with what you need, they're gonna want to join you. And then you can also reach out to other organizations. I mean, we have a whole bunch of business and marketing orgs, and they all are looking for, you know, leadership positions. And there's only so many inside Granite. So they're gonna find really easy leadership positions within COE, College of Engineering, and anywhere else on campus. So don't be afraid to go reach out to some of them and reach out personally. I think that'll go a really long way.
I think that, you know, the obvious thought is to go after people whose major corresponds with the role you're looking for. But sometimes it's harder to find, but there are all the other people in the other majors that are also interested in that. I know my job is almost all money and I am not in finance. I can just work an Excel sheet. So it's finding people have interests outside of their major that may seem like the easy shot to go after the major, but getting the word out there. It sounds silly. Free food draws a lot of people in if that's what you're looking for. I think there's a group chat about it. There's a free food group.
oh,
Dang.
You're not it? It used to be a whole club where they didn't provide free food. They just shared where the free food was. So if your club has the resources to just anything to draw people in and get those different backgrounds and demographics to find someone who may be interested in the role you have.
Well, does SFAB or Soga sponsor my Chick-fil-A or what's the deal on that?
So good does not SFAB mine.
Anybody from ASMU watching? Let's get that noted.
Maybe I'll give another perspective. So I was part of IGEM, which is International Genetically Engineered Machine. And that was mainly populated by biological engineers. I am not an engineer. And the whole time that I was there, I felt like they were their thing and I was just the outsider, which is a very common misconception of a lot of clubs. If you can correct me here, engineering clubs where engineers and then it's everyone else. And so it's very hard sometimes because I don't believe that's true, but it's a misconception that a lot of people who are outside believe, which may keep them from joining that. So, and that all comes down to culture, is you showing like why you should join. You will belong here. Like, we're not just engineers, like you said, like, and making sure that is known. Like, we value your business side. This is something our engineers can provide, for example, because their background is engineering. That is something that you will provide that no one else will. And you will belong for that reason. You're not just going to be like an outcast in this group of engineers. And that's something I felt a lot. And only when I became part of the exec board for that team that I really pushed. No, like, I know what it's like to be on the other side. And I know in order to do that, we have to cater our club to fit those audiences as well. We have to have, like you said, always nice to show benefits of like why you should join, what you're going to gain from this, and show that those aspects, those majors are valued as well in that, and that you will gain. It's not just going to be an engineering thing. So
That's huge. All right, so we call it like our external team. People that reach out. It's funny. It's actually led by Zach right here. And but it's the team that makes the most connection with the industry. They're the ones that bring in money. They get jobs from these conversations that they're having. So it's like the best way to network. And it's funny that most of our team is actually mechanical engineers. And it's people that just wanted to build skills and go network personally. And they almost have an excuse to because of our club.
It's kind of just like on a broad note, you would be surprised how many orgs you look at and the roles that people are doing and how unassociated they are. I know, like in student government, you think, oh, we have all these political science. We don't. I mean, they are they are there, but it's people who want to be involved and are interested in something else. Or on the SOGA ESTA board, you think it's all finance people. So it's not. There's a couple actuaries, but it's people who are just interested in it.
Awesome. So as you look into the next group of leaders that are joining your club, what advice would you give them for a successful transition into leadership?
So tactically, I mean, we all run transition documents. So that, I mean, that's a thing I think every org does. It's not special. But actually filling them out well, filling them out with things that, you know, aren't just in the Constitution. And then also telling them like the day-to-day tricks that you might not have picked up that took you a while. But then also strategically, you need to be able to kind of zoom out and your incoming, you have to tell your incoming people where you think the club should be heading. Because a lot of the people that are like rising through the ranks, you're always tactical, you're always operational. You never have a say in where the club's going. And you need to start teaching them how to be strategic and how to start thinking on a broader scale to where do you want the club to go and why. What new opportunities should you be accessing and who's going to be the people that helps you get there? And that's something that takes a little time to train, and that's really important in the transition process. So people don't just keep doing what's already been done, because that's a great way to run your club into the ground. You have to have people that are going to keep innovating and keep identifying new opportunities, and you need to make sure that goes on during the transition process.
I was actually just thinking about my transition docs there, and it's like, think about something that would be like, oh, I wish I would have known this when I started. And maybe if you're really on your game, you start the list when you take the role and then put it all together at the end. I wish. I'm not on my game with that. But think about, oh, this little thing that's not written anywhere, but it's a really useful tip for kind of the smaller things. It's also helpful to get the contact information of the person who had the role ahead of you. And hopefully that's in the transition documents, but don't be afraid to shoot them a text and say, hey, what does this mean? Or what was the point of this? Or why'd you do it this way?
yeah, I mean, of course, those transition moments are really important, but it's also the notion of like, if I was a leader and someone's taking my position, I don't just go, okay, whatever, don't care about it anymore. You're still there. You're still there providing support. And that's something, it's very big. It doesn't have to be just the first month. if you have a question halfway through your experience and you're like, oh my God, reach out to that person, I think. And also it's very important, I feel like, that we state that, of course, we're gonna have all these transitions. We're gonna make sure that your transitions as smoothly as possible. But you're gonna make mistakes, you're gonna learn. And if you're not learning, like, what are you doing? So that's kind of what I always say, like, whoever is taking up my position, I am always saying, like, it's okay. Like, you're gonna learn through this. And in your transition, make sure you feel like that, accept that. It's not all gonna be perfect, like you said. And that's fine. And we're gonna be here to support you in all the way. Like, make sure that you're feeling like they have good expectations coming in, and they have the realistic expectations as well. I feel like a lot of times we see people coming into leadership positions with all these amazing expectations, and that's amazing. Like, you should not have any ideas or just come in not expect to change anything. Like, staying in the status quo is rarely a good thing, but also making sure that they understand, like, most of these positions are there for what, a year. So of course you can lay the land, but maybe you're not going to finish that project, and that's fine. Like, you're going to be the person that started something big in 5 years, and that's great. So I feel like that's also a big thing, part of transition, is making sure those expectations and the way they're going to work out is very set in stone from the beginning.
Another thing that I had when I first took on the treasurer role is I wish I had paid more attention to the guy who had it before me. So, so I thought he did a good job. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't, but I thought it was good. So if there's a role you're looking at, maybe talk ahead of time before your elections or whatever to pay attention to that role, see how they do it. Because it's one thing to ask afterward, but to actually remember how they were doing it, to be able to pick up on that. Because I remember I was in like the first SOG meeting, I was like, man, I wish I had paid more attention. This time just trying to take notes.
Awesome. As we start to wind our time down, I'm interested, how do you navigate working with your advisors as a leader of your student organization? What's that like?
Send emails all day long. Mike's my advisor, and we email back and forth a lot. But I think it's the advisor is there to help you, so you should never feel bad about asking them a question, shooting them an email or text, even if it's just like a small little thing that you're not sure about. They're there to help you, to guide you in the right direction, and they want you to go in the right direction. So if you're not sure what that is, just reach out, because they want you to.
I mean, one thing I had to take out of my mind is they're not scary people. They won't bite you for sending an email. When I was the president of the Brazilian Association, I was like, oh my God, like he's a graduate student. He's like going to become a full-on staff. He's too cool to handle our little issues, and that's so not true, because they decided to be that. It's because they're passionate about what they're doing. They're passionate about the concept of that club. So it's okay. They're probably going to enjoy the fact that you're reaching out. So I was very nervous at first, and I had to like navigate that and eventually be like, oh, he actually cares about our problems. Like, that's crazy to me. So it's kind of like that. They're really there to support you, and they decided to be your advisor for a reason. They've probably been there for a long time. They know better than you. And you're okay to like admit that sometimes. It doesn't mean all the time they know better than you because you're a student, but sometimes they can give you an input of years of experience that you didn't have. And so sometimes it's okay that you're like, I'm not really sure how to proceed. What are your thoughts? If you want to take what they said, cool. If you don't, that's fine too. But it's just a point of reference of how to proceed in the future that maybe didn't have before.
I'm really curious what you guys talk to your advisor about, because I don't really talk to them. They're great. They're supportive. I only go to them if I need something done at the school level. If it's something that we can't do as students, that's when we call them up. But otherwise, nice people, I meet with them twice a month, but we don't reach out.
And that's fine. I mean, there's all kinds of different leadership styles, different kinds of advising, depends on the needs of the organization. And as student leaders, you communicate those needs and work out what's best for you all. So Marcus, Manu, Sean, as we look to wrap up our time, I want to ask, what's just a piece of advice you want to give to students out there that are watching right now or may watch us in the future? No other prompts, just what's a piece of advice you want to give somebody?
I can run it. My big thing is, so this is real personal to me too. I think a lot of people benefit from it, but chase impact. That's always my thing, is like, where can you go to make the biggest benefit on either the most number of people or the greatest benefit on just a select number of people? And that's kind of how I got involved with ASME, is that, it was never the goal to go grow to an X number size club. The goal was that we wanted to help one more member get a job in an internship that would help one more member in the community. And when you just follow that process, you get really good at bringing people in that want to make that impact and that are really passionate about leveraging their skills for good. That's when the gears start turning, the flywheel starts spinning, and you're able to really convert that into like membership growth and success on campus. And that just goes into your broader life too, is when you find those things that just get you amped up. Like when you're going to bed, you're just wired. The next morning, think that you get to do something. A club or anything you ever do should never be like, I have to go do this. Except classes, that depends on what you think. But it's more that you get to go do whatever you're doing. And if you don't get to go do it, stop doing it. And so you got to really make sure that it's like calling to everything that you want, because we got almost 1,000 clubs on campus, whole lot of different opportunities. If you don't like one club, it's not the end of the world. You'll go find another.
Yeah. I think I'll build off on your said, like the impact that you mentioned. I think one thing that I had my whole life, I was like, my dream in life is to have an impact, make a change. That's not tangible. Like you can't make a smart goal out of that. So it's like, and then I kind of like learned how do I handle this, right? Because there was that constant cognitive dissonance of like, I want to do this, but I can't act that way because I can't really measure my impact on people. So I was always feeling like I wasn't building up to my expectations and all that. And I kind of created, especially as a leader, and then I kind of created in my mind that sometimes I don't have to be the one impacting. I can be the one empowering others to impact. And in the end, I indirectly impacted as well. And as a leader, kind of recently have adopted very much that servant leadership perspective of, I don't create followers, I make leaders. So, and that's kind of how I am. Like, those people are probably going to take up my position in the future. So I want them to feel empowered to do so. So as you're going into an organization, I don't want any of the people who are working with me to feel like they're followers. I want them to feel like every day they're gaining their abilities to become leaders in the future. So that's kind of like my advice to anyone that's joining an organization. If you ever feel like you're not growing from it, or you don't have that culture of, you have an ability to grow, you have an ability to maybe in the future fulfill that leadership position, or like you mentioned, you don't get to do that, you have to find your why. Like I mentioned, if your why isn't clear to you, maybe that's not what you want to do, and that's fine. You don't have to do anything. And always make sure that as a leader, like I said, you're giving those people that opportunity to build their whys, to build their leadership, to just build who they are and who they can be. I think those are really big things.
Like, I really like servant leadership. I think for me, it's about knowing your people. As a leader, you'll probably have people who report to you or however it's structured, but know your people, know their strengths, know their weaknesses, and know what will challenge them. I think maybe it's a teacher in me, but like, when I give someone something to do, I want them to be challenged by it so they can learn from it. So know what your people can do, and know what you have around you that pushes them outside of their comfort zone. I think a lot of times people feel like, oh, we have all these tasks, I know you can do it, so just go do it. But if you want the people around you to grow as well, you got to give them something that will challenge them.
I think that goes into like, give people problems, not solutions.
Yeah.
Like, it's really easy when you're at the top to be like, here, it's all laid out, go do my grunt work.
Yeah.
Versus like, here's a problem, and they're gonna get way more out of that.
That's it. Another thing, like, the thing that you're doing with your people is probably not the only thing they're interested in. So find out how to integrate other people's interests and hobbies into the work you're doing. I think people like that as well.
I'll give like another little advice. Don't have a big ego. Sometimes the way you're doing things is not the best way, and accept that. Like I think a lot of us are very capable, and sometimes we get lost in that, like, I do things well and you may, but you can optimize everything pretty much. And everything that you're doing can sometimes, everything can always improve. So keeping that in mind, that a new student that's been at Purdue for 2 weeks maybe has an idea that's like, whoa, like that is amazing. And be accepting of that and humble enough to know that just because you're in power doesn't mean that that person can add to you or your work or the work you've been doing for years.
That's awesome. I think we've learned a lot tonight. So thank you all for your time and talking to the audience and future students and future leaders. Thank you as well when we go back and watch this video. So again, thank you for participating tonight. Your advice is wonderful. And that's all.